Hey, good morning. So glad that you are worshiping with us here at Lake Norman High School, or for those of you who are worshiping with us on the chat room or in the chat room or via podcast later on this week. We are grateful for you. Today we are going to be talking about who we are and who we are in light of other people's opinions. We are in the middle of a message series around Let Them. So I'm glad that you have chosen this morning to be here at West. There's a lot of different things that you could be doing with your time today. So I'm really grateful that you took a little while out of your busy life to worship with us here. If you're newer to the West community, if this is your first time, we're not ever going to do anything to embarrass you or anything like that, but we would love to know that you were here. We have a VIP tent station outside of this room, and we'd love for you to stop by and let us know that you were here. You can choose whether you opt in to hearing from us again or not. If you're worshiping via live stream, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen. You can also do that if you're sitting in the room. But if you're worshiping online, this is the best way to let us know that you are here. And then there's a lot of exciting things that are happening right now at West. We are gearing up for what is going to be an amazing back-to-school bash on July 19th. It will be the 15th annual bash. This is a time when we lead an effort in our community with lots of businesses and other churches and our school systems to host 1,200 students and their families. So it's over about 5,000 people at Mooresville Middle School, and we give away new tennis shoes, new backpacks, new school supplies, and then we have a gently used clothes room, a gently used book room like a library. They get to pick books and take them home, and all of this is done in a festival-like atmosphere so kids can start school feeling prepared and not feeling like it's a handout. And so we lead this effort, and we, in 2 weeks on Memorial Day Sunday, are going to have a no huddles day. Now, oftentimes that means that you think it's a skip day, like senior skip day. No huddles days are not skip days here at West. It means that you're not going to sit in the cushy chairs, and online folks, we're going to have a special task for you that morning. There's no traditional sermon or message, and we do something, we break out of the holy huddle, and we make it not about us, but about the love that we have within us and giving that love away. In the next 2 weeks, we need you to clean out your closets. We need you to clean out the closets of your kids, of your teenagers, and we collect those clothes. And then on No Huddles Day, you're going to get to do a lot of laundry. You're going to fold and sort and box so that when it comes time for the bash, we don't have thousands of items of clothes that we need to sort in 1 week. But it's really important. Ask your friends and neighbors to collect clothes. We give away clothes from infant clothes to adult clothes. And they're so grateful. And so I encourage you over the next couple of weeks to do some closet cleaning. Ask your friends and neighbors to do the same. And we really look forward to the No Huddles Day on Memorial Day Sunday. You can bring your clothes that day, or you can bring them by the West office or bring them here next Sunday morning. But we're really glad that we have the opportunity to lead the bash again this year. So grateful that you're here. We hope you find today meaningful and relevant. Thanks. So that is a Southern way of following a GPS, and I recognize that not all of us are from the South, but if you are or you've been here any amount of time, you know that sometimes we say words like yonder. And you can find it over yonder, or you go past and then you give some landmark. My son was visiting this weekend, and he lives in upstate New York now, and he hasn't been here like for an extended period of time in a long time. And so he drove down 150 with me from here to Sherrills Ford and then over to Denver, and he's like, oh my gosh, I would never have recognized it. So, you know, those little landmarks that used to be there, like the Terrell General Store, not there anymore. Things change. So I'd like for you to think this morning as we talk together about how you get directions for your life. Like, what GPS do you use? When GPS first came out, I think many of us debated its accuracy. I can remember times when I would put it in and I was going to be going somewhere in Charlotte for a meeting, and I'd follow the GPS down there, and inevitably I would go around in circles a few times, and so I would pay attention to it, but it would lead me in the wrong direction. That caused me to mistrust said GPS. So then after that, I never would quite believe it was telling me the truth. So I would interpret it with my own lens, and I would follow it, sort of, which that didn't work out either. And I am directionally impaired on a good day. Like, I cannot find my way, period. Even like if I go stay at a hotel and I've been there for 3 days, I still by the third day cannot remember when you come out of the door, do you go left or right to find your way out? I mean, it's bad. And I don't know about you, but sometimes we are so tempted to use other people's opinions about us as our GPS system. So I want you to take a look at this map. This is just a generic road map, but I want us to be challenged this morning to look at what kind of map we use for our lives and whether or not we let other people's opinions on us give us direction. I shared with you a few minutes ago that we are in the middle of a series called Let Them. Mel Robbins came out with this philosophy, and others have had the philosophy over the years, but I don't think any of us can argue that she has made it famous. Back before Christmas, she went viral with a video talking about Let Them. She's written and published a book. I really encourage you to read it. We have a small group that's going to start after worship next Sunday to talk about it, and then later on this summer, we're going to have a Tuesday night small group that talks about it as well. But it's this powerful concept. And last Sunday, we started the series off and we talked about, like, when other people have stuff with us, the best way that we can approach it is to just let them. But you don't just let them. It's a two-part thought process. We let them, and then we let me. So this morning we're going to talk about the concept in particular of letting other people have negative opinions and thoughts about us. And that's tough. If somebody thinks negative things about me, I don't like it. What about you? I want you to take a look at this clip from Mel talking about this very thing.
If you're censoring yourself in any way, it's because you're afraid of other people's opinions. Me too. You have to say, let them. Let them think, say, and feel however they're going to feel. Because my life is my responsibility. And I got to focus on what I can control. And I got to say the second part of the let them theory, which is let me. Let me do the things that I need to do to achieve that goal. Let me put myself out there. Let me act in a way that makes me feel proud of myself. Because when you start to feel proud of yourself, you're not going to care what anybody thinks, because you know the facts, you know the truth, you know who you are. And you know, most advice on this topic, I'm just going to come right out and say it sucks, because most people are going to tell you, just stop caring about what other people think. But nobody tells you how. I'm telling you how. I'm telling you, give people the freedom to think whatever they want. Let them judge, let them have negative thoughts, let them unfollow you, let them do and feel and think whatever they want to do, because my life is my responsibility.
Let them. I want you to take a look at this quote. Trying to control what people think of you is a full-time job with no benefits. So Josh Pettit is one of our staff folks here and works with our worship production. Several years ago became viral around the issue of Alzheimer's with his mom, and so has quite a following on social media. Josh periodically puts what we're doing at West and what songs we're doing. And we always try to do some songs that you might know, you might hear on the radio, secular songs, if you want to call it that. And like they sang Zombie this morning, I mean, that's not a contemporary Christian song, but it's a song that if you listen to pop radio, you've heard before. This Is Me. It's a song from a movie. It's a Broadway musical as well. Both songs have powerful lyrics that can cause us to think about the very topic that we're talking about today, other people's opinions of us and what we should do with that. And we're also going to tie in what Jesus did with that as well. But we recognize in West United Methodist Church exists for people who are looking for meaning and connection, and we believe a connection to the divine, but we exist for people that have perhaps not darkened the doors of a church in a very long time, if ever. And guess what? Like if folks haven't gone to church, they don't want to come in for the first 5 minutes and be inundated with all this stuff that they don't understand. So it's why we do what we do. It's why we weave songs that are relevant, that perhaps you're not going to see on the contemporary Christian top 10 list. We do all those things intentionally. Now, what I just said to you very quickly is very difficult to explain online. And honestly, the whole Facebook following and people being negative and that kind of stuff, I'm sort of over it. Like, we're not ever going to convince people that worship a different way and honor God in a different way, that our way is the right way. Heck, I don't even know if it is, but as long as God keeps leading us in the direction that we're going and things seem to be going okay, which they do, we're going to trust that we're following God in a faithful manner. Josh periodically sends me screenshots of things. He knows that social media makes me paranoid. This whole let them theory could apply to me really well. And so I don't pay attention to social media. I log in maybe once or twice a week, do a scroll, and then that's about it. So periodically, if folks are snarky, he will screenshot it and send it to me. Last Sunday was not an exception. I can't remember, Let It Go from Frozen, I think was the song that we were practicing last Sunday or singing, and Josh put a clip of that online, and the first reply was, do you ever talk about Jesus? I mean, really, do you ever talk about Jesus? And Josh sent me the screenshot. I said, write back and say, no, we try not to. And he wrote back, LOL, and he knew I didn't mean that. Like, please don't put that, because I cannot imagine the barrage of comments that would come after that. And probably y'all wouldn't be real proud of me as your pastor either. But I mean, on Sunday afternoons now, I'm way older than I was when I first started ministry. And so by Sunday afternoon, I'm sort of tired. And I'm really sort of done with the snarkiness. We're all trying to reach the same goal, which is teach people about this amazing love that comes in our lives and changes our lives, and how can we follow that love in the best way possible so that we experience the kingdom of God here. That's what it's all about, and there are lots of different ways to figure that out. But the snarkiness of folks just gets under my skin. I did not live the let them theory last Sunday. Do you ever talk about Jesus? No. Actually, we do. The whole thing is built around Jesus. And so I want to share with you a story before we dive into the Mel Robbins principles this morning. This story about Jesus is so powerful, and we read it right before Holy Week, but we perhaps do not give it the levity that it needs, because it leads into all the other things. So this morning I want us to hear this passage from Luke 23. It's when Jesus goes before Pilate. The whole assembly got up and led Jesus to Pilate, and they began to accuse him. Now, Pilate was the governing official at the time, so he would have had a very, very vested interest and power over what happened to Jesus. And they said, we have found this man misleading our people, Other translations say starting a revolt or a revolution. We have found this man misleading our people. We found him opposing the payment of taxes to Caesar. And we have found him claiming that he is the Christ, the King. Now Jesus is standing there as they're hurling their accusations. And so Pilate looks at him and he says, "Are you the King of the Jews?" And Jesus replied, "That is what you say." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no legal basis for action against this man." But the crowds objected strenuously, saying he agitates the people with his teaching throughout Judea, starting from Galilee all the way here. So hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was Galilean. And when he learned that Jesus was from Herod's district, Pilate sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at the time. Herod was very glad to see Jesus, for he had heard about him, and he wanted to see him for quite some time. He was hoping to see Jesus perform some kind of sign or miracle. Herod questioned Jesus at length. But Jesus, guess what he did? He didn't write a snarky Facebook post. He didn't make a viral TikTok video arguing with them. Jesus said nothing. That is so hard to do. And what Mel Robbins talks about in her theory of Let Them, she really digs deep into the neurological and the psychological principles around, like, what do we do and why do we do it when people say bad things or think bad things about us? It goes back to the space of safety, like we want to feel safe and secure. So if people think negatively about us, especially determining, like how important those people are in our lives, right? Like, so not everybody gets the same weight. But if somebody that we really care about thinks negatively about us, it bothers us, right? And if we're not careful, we start living. This goes back to that roadmap image. We start living according to other people's thoughts and opinions. And in no way is that a good idea. And Jesus shows us that that's not, honestly, how you do it. Take a look at this quote by psychologist Brené Brown. If you're always trying to be understood, you may never find your true voice. If you're always trying to be understood, you may never find your true voice. So let's go back to this thing that happened to Jesus, right? So they get him there and all the crowds, the ones that are speaking the loudest are the ones that are the angriest. Has that ever happened to you in real life? Usually the people that are happy with what you're doing or how you're living, all those kinds of things, they don't say stuff. It's the disgruntled and the angry and the bitter and the got the chip on the shoulder. Those are the ones that typically speak up, unfortunately, the most. And if you're always trying to be understood by those folks, you may never find who you truly are. You may never be on your right path, the path that is true to you. So, look at the folks and the people that said the stuff to Jesus and look at what they said. So they're like, he's trying to lead a revolt against the government. That is not true. That is an absolute distortion of what Christ was doing. Now, did he lead them into change? Absolutely. But he was not trying to overthrow the government. In fact, his words were, "My kingdom is not of this world, and I'm going to show you and help you experience this kingdom of God that exists within you. It's both and. It is within you, and it is also yet to come." He talked about that a lot. He was trying to get them to understand that the way to experience God was not the way that they had been adhering to the 615 laws, and that when the law trumped loving people, they needed to revisit it. When the law trumped loving people, they needed to think about it differently. So, what's Jesus' baseline again? It's love. So he wasn't trying to lead a revolt or a revolution against the government. He was trying to lead a revolution of love. And then they throw an accusation at him that could really get him into trouble, like breaking the political law, the governmental law, of trying to get them to not pay taxes. And that was a distortion as well. Jesus said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and then give to God what is God's." He wasn't trying to cheat the government out of money. If the IRS had existed back in Jesus' time, he would have not cheated on his taxes. He wouldn't have thrown in a few more deductions. He would have just paid them. So the things that they thought about him were simply not true. And guess what? Just like the person that said, "Do you ever talk about Jesus?" Like, really, it's all we talk about, just in different ways. They didn't understand. They don't understand. And guess what? There is nothing that I can do, that we can do, that's going to change their mind. So why it's so powerful, like what Jesus did. So they take him before this figure of authority, and he asks him a question, "Are you?" And instead of giving this lecture, or instead of calling in all the people who had experienced the miracles for their personal testimonies, he just responds, "You say that I am." Now, some could argue that he was resigned to that because he knew what was coming, but we have no idea why he said that. But look at the power in that statement. You have said that I am. And then we can extrapolate from that and think, but Jesus knew who he was. So today, do you know who you are? Who are you? What's your platform? What principles do you stand on? If people were to look at you and your life, would they say, "Oh, you know what? I don't know a lot about them, but I know that they're a person of love. I don't know a lot about them, but I know that when they face adversity, they always act in grace. I don't know a lot about them, but they're generous and compassionate." What truth do you stand in? So Mel Robbins tells multiple stories in her book, and I really do encourage you to read it or get it on Audible. She tells a story about one of her friends that overcommitted for a weekend. One of her best friend's big birthdays was going to be happening, and she really wanted to go see her best friends. Everybody was going to be getting together in one central location to celebrate this turning point birthday. And then she had forgotten that her grandparents were going to be coming in to her parents' home and spending the weekend, and she had committed for that. So she double booked. She didn't know what to do for the longest time, and then she decided, okay, It's going to be a lot of road time, a lot of car time, but I can do both. I can go spend the Friday night with my friends, be there for the first part of the party and the weekend, and get up really early Saturday morning and drive and get to my parents and spend the rest of the weekend with my grandparents, and everybody's happy. Well, guess what happened? She goes to her friend's birthday party to have the best time. She has a little bit, this is in the book, a little bit of a hangover on Saturday morning, but she gets up really early, having experienced this amazing Friday night, drives to see her grandparents. When she walks in and her grandmother is there, her grandmother is beaming, and Robbins writes that her smile tells the whole story. She's so glad that she has gone to all that effort to do both and to not disappoint anyone. And then check out what happens next. One of her friends from the party texts her and says, just wanted to let you know that so-and-so said, which I don't know why you tell somebody this, it just ruins their day. This could have been left unsaid, but I just want to let you know that so-and-so said she wishes that you hadn't come at all if you couldn't have stayed for the whole weekend. And then, after she hugged her grandmother when she arrived at her mom's house, she hugged her mom. Instead of being, oh, I'm so glad you're here, her mom whispers in her ear, your grandmother's really disappointed that you weren't here when she got here last night. You can't win. And just like she couldn't win in those two situations, in our lives, there is going to be time after time after time that we cannot win in the eyes of other people. We are going to disappoint other people. Other people are not going to like us. And it's okay. So what would happen to our mental psyche, and what would happen to our place of peace if we adopted the Jesus model? We stand in truth. We know who we are, and we don't have to argue. In the United Methodist theology, the guy that founded Methodism, his name was John Wesley. And he had these 3 things that are called the 3 simple rules. And one is do no harm. In everything that we do, everything that we say, every Facebook post that we make, every text that we send, every opinion that we form, honestly, if we're living in the way of Christ, we do no harm. So what does that mean? It means when people think negatively of us, Jesus had this whole model about, like, you turn the other cheek, or you forgive 70 times 7. You let it go. You let them. And then you let me. Jesus stood in silence. You say that I am. But he also stood in peace. Can we find that inner peace? Because that's what it's about. Can we find that inner peace that lets us then not give, forgive me, but a crap what other people think? We got to have that peace. In 1 Peter, long after the years of Jesus' life and death and resurrection, they write about how he was one who did not ever need to retaliate no matter what happened to him. That when he faced adversity, he always responded with grace. Isn't it interesting that in 2025, in a time when as a nation we're divided, as people, we seem to just be really, really stressed out and gripped with lots of emotion, and we tend to take that emotion out on one another, and the world that this Jesus principle has now found its way in a New York Times bestseller. Robbins doesn't trace it back to Jesus, but we can. Let them. And let me. So the next time that somebody says something bad about you or thinks something bad about you, what if you say, so what? So what? Do you ever talk about Jesus? So what? Like, that's what you think? The people that come to West or worship at West online or are part of the West community, I hope you know we talk about Jesus. If you don't know that, then schedule a time with me because we need to do things differently. But the next time somebody thinks something negative about you, what if we really did just let them? You want to start a revolution like Jesus did? That's the best way to go. To stand in truth. To know who you are and know what you stand for and know where you're going. When I started ministry at Williamson's Chapel after my first appointment at North Morganton, I had no idea how big the church was when I got there. And it looked like a small church because it just had the chapel. I had no idea when I interviewed for the position that they had 3 services and that the middle one had like 500 people in it. I had no idea what I was getting into. If I had, I probably would not have pursued the position because I would have thought it was much bigger than any skill set I ever had. It was a huge learning curve, and I did so many things wrong when I first started. There's a lesson that I learned from my first senior pastor there that I've never forgotten, and it's one that I think applies for each of us, especially in light of the let them theory. He told me I did pinball ministry. Now, I know if you're under 40 or 30, you may not have any idea what a pinball machine is. But it's this big thing, and it stands on 4 legs, and it has this little ball, and you pull it back. If you go to an arcade somewhere, you can see old school pinball machines, and you pull this lever back, and then this ball just bounces. And the more it bounces, the more points you get. So in pinball, it's great if you hit a lot of the bumpers and go all over the thing before the ball falls back to a resting position. Great for pinball, not great for a way to live one's life. He said, you do pinball ministry. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, you go where people's opinions lead you. So if you're talking to one group of people and they feel really strongly about this, you're like, oh, okay, yes, I hear you. I agree. And then once they hit you the other direction, you go the other way and you're like, oh, well, yeah, okay. Or if people need you, you're just bouncing around. You have no boundaries, and no one would know what you stood for because you're all over the place. Pinball ministry was not a compliment, but I took his words to heart. And so over the years that I've been in ministry, I've learned to stand up for what I believe in, which is why we have a church the way that we do. I've learned that it's okay for people not to like you. I don't like it when they don't like me, and I lose sleep sometimes because of it. But I've learned that it's part of it. And even after 28, 29 years in ministry, I still have to go back to the Jesus model where he just stands there and says, you say so. Y'all don't talk about Jesus, do you? You say so. Let it go. So with that in mind, I'll confess my other little sin. So last fall, I don't remember what the sermon series or the message series we were doing, but Josh had put a post, and that's when all this started to go viral, that we sang secular songs. And then one of the things that's happened over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months is we're putting short reels out on YouTube and TikTok of the messages, especially when we did the grief series. Like, we chopped it up, or not we, Josh chopped it up and started putting pieces on TikTok and YouTube. This is why I don't like social media, because when you put yourself out there, people have opinions. I want all the opinions, of course, to be good. They're not. And this particular day, we had already sang a secular song in worship, so someone had commented about that. And then somebody said, "It's a woman?" And I'm like, yes, really, that's really old too, because I'm old now. Can we not move past the woman pastor thing in the year 2025? But it's how they interpret Scripture. And then somebody else said, "That's double creepy, that you sing secular songs and it's a woman pastor." So thank goodness, like, I didn't launch into a whole narrative on social media, but I let it get under my skin. And a dear friend made me a water bottle, which honestly is one of my most prized items. It says "Double Creepy Preacher Lady." And it has a picture of me. Now, I don't like to look at myself, so I don't like that part of it, but it reminds me who I am. My sin in that situation was neurosing over what people thought of me. And there was a lot of chatter around that post. And I fell victim to the chatter. And so I'd open up Facebook probably more in those 2 days than I had opened up Facebook in months, checking to see what someone else said. Why did I care? Y'all know who I am, and I hope you figured out my gender by now. If not, let's have another conversation. But seriously, like, I let that get under my skin so bad. And then, like, a few months ago, the bishop's wife came here to West to worship. And that's a big deal in the United Methodist Church. The bishop is the governing person over our churches and network, and like there's 2 in North Carolina. The state is split in halves in the Methodist world. And so for Bishop Carter's wife to come worship with us, it was a big deal. And I worried about that worship service more than I've worried about many in a long time. And all day Saturday, I reworked it and thought about it and almost moved things around and took out some of our secular songs because I was so worried what she was going to think. And then in my meditation and prayer that evening, I thought, let her. We know what we're doing. We're reaching new people. More people are at West now, in person and digitally, that have been in a couple of years before the pandemic. And people are saying that their lives are changed and they're different. What is your truth? Do you stand on your truth? Do you do no harm? Would people look at you and think, that is a person of love, compassion, and grace, a person that does no harm, only offers love? That is the Jesus way. Let them. It really doesn't matter what they think, as long as you are true to who you are, and as long as you're being a person, we are being a person of love. Let us pray. Gracious God, you show us the way. It does not mean that it is easy, but you show us the way. It's so easy to let people's opinions get under our skin and make us self-doubt and want to change things, want to prove ourselves right. But God, Jesus just let them. And in doing so, he shows us how to live. God, if we're not standing on this place of compassion and grace and truth, nudge us back in that direction. Forgive us of the times that we fall short of being this beacon of light and love in our community and in our world. God, help us let it go so that we can be more like you and lead others to you. We're so grateful for the love that we have within. We offer ourselves to you. In Christ's name, amen. So in 1 Peter it said that when they hurled insults at him, he didn't retaliate. And when he was suffering, he didn't make threats back at them. He entrusted himself to God. What if we start trying that? When people think poorly or they're nasty, they say mean things, what if we don't retaliate or make threats? What if we just entrust ourselves to God, which means entrusting ourselves to love, which means that all things work together for good. Let them, and then let us be like God. Go in peace, and happy Mother's Day.